This week on ANN, Adventist leaders condemned the March 22nd attack on the Westminster Bridge and Westminster Palace in England.
The president of Guyana commemorates the church's 130th anniversary in the nation.
And an Adventist in the U.S. state of Maryland becomes the first African-American female to be accepted into the prestigious neurosurgical residency program of Johns Hopkins Hospital.
These stories and more coming up.
Thanks so much for joining us this week.
In the span of a little more than 80 seconds, the actions of one man driving a rented car injured at least 50 people and claimed 4 lives on the Westminster Bridge and on the grounds of the Westminster Palace. One of the responding police officers was among the slain.
The attack began on March 22nd when Khalid Massoud drove a vehicle on the sidewalk of the Westminster Bridge.
Police believe the vehicle was traveling up to 76 miles per hour or 122 kilometers per hour. Massoud then drove through railings surrounding the Westminster Palace before he ran from the vehicle when confronted by police.
Wow. The assailant then fatally stabbed an officer who was unarmed but wearing a protective vest. Massoud was then shot and killed by police.
Leaders within the Seventh-day Adventist Church's Trans-European territory were quick to offer condolences to the affected families.
The president of the Adventist Church's United Kingdom and Ireland territory, Ian Sweeney, said, "Adventists condemn Wednesday's terrorist attack in London, and we mourn the tragic and senseless loss of life that resulted. As a community of faith, our thoughts and prayers are with the families and friends of all those who mourn."
And the president of the Trans-European territory, Rafat Kamal, added, "We do not let acts like this defeat us, but rather we feel more compelled to share the love of God that can touch and transform all lives."
In the South American nation of Guyana, many joined the celebration of the Seventh-day Adventist Church's 130th anniversary in the nation. Among the most passionate supporters was the nation's president, David Granger. The Seventh-day Adventist Church's Guyana territory sent this report.
On Sunday, over 1,000 Adventists marched through the streets of the capital in observance of the 130th years since Adventism came to these shores from 1887 to 2017. The parade also displayed the different aspects of Adventism, its uniform work, health, sexual purity, religious beliefs, and much more. The parade marched west along Brick Dam, north along Albert Street, east along Church Street, heading to the Central SDA Church on Church and Arnock Streets, the first SDA church to be built in the 1800s. Early in the morning, during the rededication of the church, President David Granger was the guest of honor and said that the determination and dedication of the church's pioneers over the past 130 years have made Adventism one of the leading Christian denominations in Ghana. He reminded that Adventism is part of the Protestant movement which began some 500 years ago.
Adventism is a doctrine of the future, not of the past. Why the 130 years? Think about the next 130 years. The church's core belief is about the Savior's second coming. It is about the duty of devotees to understand that biblical prophecy and to prepare for that event.
Granger, who's also a historian, said from as early as 1883, the International Tract and Missionary Society began dispatching religious literature to British Guyana, and within the first 25 years of the introduction of Adventism, 5 churches were established, with Central SDA being the first in 1887. However, President Granger had this advice for the leadership within the Ghana Conference of SDA.
So, today I congratulate the church in helping to define and shape a positive role, particularly for men in society and for the family.
Meanwhile, President of the Ghana Conference of SDA, Pastor Richard Everett James, commended the head of state for his unwavering efforts to unite Guyanese.
We are truly delighted and grateful to have the head of state of the land of the pepper pot and many waters at this occasion of celebration. We would like the head of state to know that we are praying that he will continue to keep the torch of unity and integration burning brilliantly in this dear land of Guyana.
President Granger was later showered with gifts of Adventist literature from Vice Chancellor of the University of Guyana, Dr. Barbara Reynolds, who is also a member of Central SDA. Later in the afternoon, the parade of over 1,000 Master Guides, Pathfinders and Adventure and other departments of the church ended at the Sophia Exhibition Complex, where President of the Adventist Church in Guyana, Pastor James, and others took the Eyes Right salute, launching the Adventist Village on Expo for 1 week, ending this Saturday. The nightly evangelistic messages is being preached by visiting Guyanese pastor from the USA, Dr. James Jensen.
An Adventist in the U.S. state of Maryland recently made history by becoming the first African-American female to be accepted in the neurosurgical residency program at Johns Hopkins Hospital. It is said that the highly competitive program accepts between 2 and 5 residents a year. Nancy Abu Bansera learned of her acceptance on March 17, or Match Day. The annual Match Day marks the time when thousands of fourth-year medical school students in the United States discover where they will complete their residency program. The most notable alum of the Johns Hopkins Neurosurgical Program is Dr. Ben Carson, who currently serves as the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development for the United States. Dr. Carson became widely known after he successfully separated conjoined twins who were joined at the back of their heads. Abu Bansera is currently a member of the Washington Ghanaian Seventh-day Adventist Church, where she has worshipped for 11 years. Throughout her studies at Johns Hopkins Medical School, she served in the church's Health Ministries Department, where she became its director 2 years ago. The Ghana native told ANN, "I'm very thankful for how far the Lord has brought us. I pray that I continue to be of service to God and to others." Abu Bansera says she's excited to join this dedicated group of neurosurgeons who seek to provide care to those with the most need but have access to few resources. Abu Bansera will begin residency after she graduates from the Johns Hopkins School of Medicine in May.
Although the church's major evangelism series has wrapped up in Eastern Europe, a recent total member involvement series in Kenya picked up the baton and has yielded transformative results. Alongside daily evangelistic campaigns, a team of nearly 200 physicians, nurses, and other healthcare workers treated more than 19,000 people throughout Western Kenya for free. The Health Ministries Director of the church's East Central Africa region, Fesea Setgay, said at least 400 patients of the clinics that operated from March 3 to 18 were baptized as a result of the care and compassion they received. More than 73,000 were baptized by the culmination of the 4,000 meetings that were held in the region. Local church members have embraced the principles of the Total Member Involvement Initiative by sharing Jesus through free clinics, health seminars, and Bible studies. They have set an unprecedented goal to lead 400,000 people to Christ through baptism by the end of 2017.
Adventist leaders in Australia recently partnered with Christian churches to petition the nation's government to make compassion and equity the foundations of its foreign policy. The faith leaders also expressed the desire to see the government increase levels of foreign aid to the internationally agreed target of 0.7% of Australia's gross national income. Jorge Munoz, chair of the board for the Adventist Development and Relief Agency in Australia, was among those who signed the formal request. ADRA Australia is the humanitarian arm of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the country. Mark Webster, CEO of ADRA Australia, said, "Raising our church's voice is consistent with Jesus' call to love our neighbors as ourselves. Australia's aid program saves lives. Supporting it is not a matter of politics, but of humanity."
The first field school of evangelism for Japan was organized this month to help reach the 99% of people in Japan who are not Christian or are unfamiliar with Christianity. The training offered at the school will equip local church leaders and members of 12 churches to participate in numerous outreach initiatives throughout the year. The churches have committed to performing at least 3 outreach events in the next 9 months. The inaugural training took place March 10 through 12 and focused on personal evangelism as well as specialized training for effective prayer intercession. Ron Cluzet, Ministerial Secretary of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in the Northern Asia-Pacific region, was selected by the Adventist Church's territory in Japan to lead the School of Evangelism for 2017. Additional training for upcoming months includes how to reach out to former members, how to give effective Bible studies, and how to form mission-focused small groups. Another session will include creating content specifically for secular audiences. Leaders hope the 12 participating churches will experience true revival, a renewed sense of Adventist identity, and a stronger commitment to baptism.
Kenya was not the only Eastern African nation to see record baptisms within the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
And that's right, a 3-week campaign in its southern neighbor of Tanzania resulted in the baptisms of more than nearly 15,300 people. The number far exceeded the church's goal of just 10,000 new believers.
The baptisms also drew praise from the nation's Deputy Minister of Lands, Housing, and Human Settlements Development, the Honorable Dr. Angelina Mabula.
The Honorable Angelina Mabula applauded Adventists in Tanzania for upholding biblical standards and for their commitment to the church's mission.
Now let's travel to a little bit north of the small landlocked nation of Burundi, where members in a local church in the nation's capital are committed to reaching the hearing impaired with the gospel.
25 deaf people were baptized on March 25, marking the first time an Adventist church in Burundi held a deaf baptism.
The baptismal service was held at the Kaminji Adventist Church, which was the denomination's first church in the nation to offer sign language interpretation for the deaf.
The Burundi baptisms come as the Adventist World Church places a renewed emphasis on special needs.
And that news was welcomed by the special assistant to the denomination's president for Special Needs Ministries, Larry Evans.
Evans said, "This is not only exciting as we enter new unreached areas for special needs ministries, but also one more sign as to how the Lord is opening door after door for this ministry."
Coming up, the Adventist Church in Turkey opens its first house of prayer.
But up next, youth in Primrose, South Africa, minister to the elderly as part of the church's annual day of compassion and service for youth.
Welcome back.
Leaders are still crunching numbers and learning how youth and young adults made an impact in more than 100 countries during the denomination's Global Youth Day.
This week, we received the following Global Youth Day report from Primrose, South Africa.
See how youth from the Rose Seventh-day Adventist Church serve the elderly in their community.
In South Africa, Johannesburg, Primrose, it's Global Youth Day, which is celebrated every year in the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Today being at the 18th of March 2017, the Rose Youth is here at an old age home in Primrose helping out for the day. Activities for the day include being at an old age home, helping out in terms of the cleaning, talking to the old people, as well as helping out with the lunch. Another thing that is different from the day is that it's not church as usual. The day is used so that we are in our communities interacting with them, so that more importantly the community knows that there's an Adventist church in the area, and moreover they know of Jesus' love.
My name is Nikita Sondlo and I'm a pathfinder.
I feel good about coming to help here at this old age home and helping the old people and talking to them and helping to entertain them and helping in the kitchen. And talking to old people is really nice, and hearing their stories.
Because we also had a chance to talk to them about Jesus and teach them that Jesus is coming very soon.
As recent as 3 years ago, there wasn't a single known Seventh-day Adventist in Ankara, Turkey.
Today, Adventists in the city have the opportunity to worship collectively in their first house of prayer.
The church's Middle East and North African territory has more.
I'm standing here on one of the largest cities in the country of Turkey. This is Ankara, Turkey, the capital of the country, where up till 3 years ago, there wasn't even one known Seventh-day Adventist. But today, I want to share with you highlights of organizing our first house of prayer in this city. You imagine that there wasn't anything just a couple years ago, but today we are active and participating in sharing God's love with the community. Won't you pray for us here as we try to do our best to share God's love?
Every single person will be involved. Today is a beginning of your journey with God to change this city with love, with the power of the Holy Spirit, with serving mankind, just like was read, with helping the helpless, blessing those who are hungry, loving people no matter what race or religion they come from, and sharing with them.
Coming up, find out what happened this week in Adventist history.
But up next, learn about a ministerial school in Wales that resisted the advances of the corrupt church from Rome in the 6th century.
Ich bin Gerald. Ich spreche Deutsch. Es gibt so viele gute adventistische Videos, doch so wenige sind übersetzt. Du kannst uns helfen.
Join the Ankara translation and caption team today. Ankara is easy to learn and fun. You can volunteer in your free time. Join this community today and provide great content in your language.
Welcome back.
This week's episode of Lineage starts at a ministry training center in Burundi, Wales.
Learn about the school's most notable student who would help spread the gospel throughout Europe.
We now present Dinu and Columbanus.
Danaud was a heroic figure who lived in the 5th and 6th centuries and was director of Christianity in England and Wales around the time of the beginning of the 1260-year prophecy in 538 and led the church during its critical encounter with Augustine, the founder of the Papal Church in Britain. He was a contemporary of Columba and had received his training from him. Here in Bangor-on-Dee in Wales, a training institute was established that would be key in establishing this country as a mighty force for truth and resisting the advances of Rome for centuries. The school here in Bangor was not a small one with just 20 or 30 students, but it would have had hundreds and at times thousands of students. There was one particular story. Soon after, the leaders of the Celtic Church had met with Augustine and rejected his teachings and authority, when 1,200 ministerial students from this school were slaughtered. The Welsh Church was one of the sturdiest and withstood much opposition to it, maintaining its stance the longest out of the churches in England, Scotland, and Wales. They differed with Rome on many points, but the supremacy of the bishops, celibacy, and the Sabbath were three of the main ones.
There is much evidence that the Sabbath prevailed in Wales universally until AD 115, when the first Roman bishop was seated at St. David's. The old Welsh Sabbath-keeping churches did not even then altogether bow the knee to Rome, but fled to their hiding places, where the ordinances of the gospel to this day have been administered in their primitive mode without being adulterated by the corrupt church of Rome.
So in the 6th and 7th centuries, we see a strong Celtic church. Patrick had been the evangelist in Ireland, Columba in Scotland, Aidan in England, and Dunaud had established a training centre here in Wales. But the gospel would flow from these shores over to Europe through the ministry of a man called Columbanus. He was trained here in Bangor, and he would carry the light to France, Switzerland, Germany, and Italy, establishing training centres on the continent. The first place he established a school was in France. Here, along with 13 others who would come with him, these Celtic missionaries lived their lives, reading the scriptures and teaching other people. No longer did the youth of the land have to travel to Ireland, Scotland, or Wales to receive training, but right in Europe they could receive an education of the highest standard. Soon this school became too small, and he planted another one nearby, and then another one nearby, all within 20 miles of each other. Later on in his life, he would plant schools in Switzerland and in Germany.
Even as he was nearing the end of his life at 70 years old, he did not slow down. Now settling in Italy, he was joyfully received, and the commonality between the faith of the Celtic Church and that of the Waldensians was seen as he found a strong bond with the believers there. Refusing to enjoy a comfortable retirement, he asked the king for a place to plant a new centre, and the locality of Bobbio, with its ruined church, was given him, and he established a school and library there. He died 1 year after founding the school in Bobbio, Italy, in the year 615 at the age of 72. He lived a faithful life, learning the gospel here in Wales and then dedicating his life to the spreading of the gospel in foreign lands, setting up mission institutes all over Europe. One thing that stands out to us from the life of Columbanus is that he worked for God all the way until the end. He didn't enjoy an easy retirement, but he kept pressing on. No matter who we are, whether we work for the church or whether we don't work for the church, whether we are employed, whether we're unemployed, whether we're old or whether we are young, let us be faithful to God wherever we are, using the talents God has given to us all the way until the end.
Visit lineagejourney.com to learn more about this innovative series.
The Lineage series was produced in partnership with the Youth Ministries Department of the Adventist Church's Northern England Territory.
And finally, for today's program, let's turn to David Trim for a look at Adventist history.
This week, learn about the first time the Advent message reached Western Africa.
Welcome to This Week in Adventist History. On March 27, 1897, the first Seventh-day Adventist baptism in West Africa took place. In what was then the British Gold Coast colony, today's Ghana, Dudley Hale, an American missionary, baptized Francis Dolphin, Fred and Isaac Dolphin, and G.P. Grant. It was the occasion for this wonderful historic photograph. The key man in this story was Francis Dolphin. In the late 1880s, this native of the Gold Coast read Seventh-day Adventist literature given to him by a ship captain. He became a Sabbath keeper himself and then raised up a group of fellow believers. In the 1890s, he repeatedly appealed to the General Conference to send missionaries to the Gold Coast. Eventually, his plea was answered, but without Francis Dolphin, it might have taken years or decades more for the third angel's message to be widely preached in West Africa. On March 28, 1834, Martha Byington was born in Bucksbridge, New York. Shown here as a young woman, in 1853 Martha established a school in Bucksbridge for the children of Seventh-day Sabbath-keeping Adventists. It was, in a sense, the first Seventh-day Adventist school. In 1860, Martha married George Amadon, a key lieutenant of James White and Uriah Smith in the nascent Adventist publishing work. Martha and George soon moved to Michigan, where the Seventh-day Adventist Publishing Association made its permanent headquarters in Battle Creek. Here you see them in a photograph taken in 1865, 2 years after the Seventh-day Adventist Church was founded in Battle Creek. Martha was the founding president of the first Dorcas Society, and as you see in this picture, lived to a very old age. She died in St. Joseph's, Michigan in 1937, aged 103, the last survivor of the founders of this prophetic movement. That was This Week in Adventist History.
Thanks for watching ANN. Join us next week for more news from the headquarters of the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
We'd love to hear from you. Send us your feedback and tell us how your church is making a difference in its community.
Be sure to capture plenty of video footage and photos, then write up a summary of the event's important details. And feel free to send full video reports as well.
You can reach us by sending an email to adventistnews@gc.org.
Before we say goodbye, here's some good news from the book of 1 Timothy, chapter 2, verses 5 and 6.
The passage says, "For there is one God and one mediator who can reconcile God and humanity, the man Christ Jesus. He gave his life to purchase freedom for everyone. This is the message God gave to the world at just the right time."
So that's our program for this week. And remember, you can always visit news.adventist.org for daily news and videos. Until next time, God bless.
Take care.